way we're going to proceed is for me to ask some specific questions for each of our panelists. I'll say just about the next four that are coming. We have we're fortunate to have perspectives from each of the three legs of the stool that we've heard about for the criminal justice system. And that's the judiciary, the defense, and the prosecution. And so each of them will be speaking to the impact that the crisis of indigent defense has had on the administration of justice in their respective jurisdictions. And then we'll pick up, Ginny Sloan will pick up with our next round of panelists who will focus more specifically on what role the federal intervention might have in addressing this crisis. So I'd like to start with Carlos Martinez. Carlos, you're the public defender, of course, of the 11th Judicial Circuit of Florida, which includes Miami-Dade County. And the question I have for you is, what I'd like to know is what challenges your office faces in delivering quality indigent defense services, and what role, if any, has federal intervention in your state played in exacerbating those challenges?
Thank you for the opportunity. I'll try to be brief, but you got to remember I have 3 strikes against me. I'm a lawyer, I'm an elected official, and I'm Cuban American. So we tend to be a little bit close. So I'll try to be brief. We have 2.5 million residents in Miami-Dade County. Public Defender's Office, my office, we represent 100,000 new people each year. We have 17 appellate attorneys. We have 160 trial attorneys. I'm sure that people doing math in their heads here already know that we don't have enough attorneys for the amount of work that we have, and that's just new cases. Those are not the cases that are pending and brought over from the prior year's representation. We are very fortunate, I'm very fortunate that I succeeded a public defender who had been in office for 32 years, Bennett Brummer, and he established an office where he took pride in making sure that we had a training division to make sure that the attorneys are adequately trained, that they have adequate supervision. However, despite our best efforts, despite having committed attorneys making sacrifices to uphold our constitutional principles, despite their best efforts, they cannot provide adequate and effective representation to all the clients because of the volume of cases that we have. Some of the challenges that we've had have to do with underfunding of the defender system. But the underfunding is not just of the defender system, it's also of the courts and it's also of the prosecution. Just to kind of give you an idea of how things have been in Miami-Dade County, we're in the middle of litigation right now. I could take the whole 8 hours to talk about litigation, which I'm not going to do. The information is on our website, which is www.pdmiami.com. There's a whole section on litigation, and you can see all the documentation in there. But through the litigation, one of the things that became clear is our attorneys were handling, particularly in third-degree felony cases, they were handling almost 1,000 cases each a year, felony cases. In our litigation, if you averaged it out across all the felony attorneys, including the training attorneys, it then dropped down to 500 felony cases per year. But what was astounding was in the litigation is we found out that the prosecutors were actually having a worse problem than we were because while we had about 150 felony cases pending, one attorney had that, the prosecutor on the other side had almost 300 cases. So it is a system that is broken, and Mr. Krugser is correct in saying that we need to be vigilant, we need to fight to make sure that the Allen Protzers that are being created every day in all our courts in Florida and throughout the country, that we do not do that. And in the part of the problem that we have is some of the indicators that we can see in Florida. By the way, in Florida, we have 20 elected public defenders and 20 elected prosecutors. The public defenders handle 850,000 new cases each year. And our total budget is about 180 million for those 850,000 cases. But some of the indicators that we see that the system is overwhelmed is language like something called plea blitzes. I don't know how many people have heard of plea blitzes, but essentially that's a day in which the court designates for the prosecutor and defense counsel to come in and make their best offers so that they can have plea blitzes, meaning that everybody makes their best offer and they close cases out, dozens of cases out. And a lot of times there are people that are innocent that are in custody, and all of a sudden they're made an offer of probation. You can get out today to go back with your family, and a lot of people do that. So it's not just the Alan Krotzes of the world in which a case ends up going to trial. There are hundreds of thousands of people that are not going to trial, that are actually accepting pleas because that's the best they can do, and that's the way they can get back to their families. But plea blitzes is one of them. I know that I'm running short on time, but I want to give you some of the biggest problems that we have. In Florida, as the elected public defender, I have an opportunity to not be representing people on misdemeanor cases if the prosecutor determines that they're not going to give jail time to the misdemeanor offender. They enter and they ask the court to enter something that's called an order of no imprisonment, which means the public defender is either not appointed on the case or is discharged. But that indigent person still has to go up against the prosecutor, a trained lawyer, in court. To give you just a flavor of how bad it is in Dade County, my office gets appointed to 50,000 misdemeanor cases a year. There are 100,000 others who are unrepresented. So we have the problem of underrepresentation, and we have the problem of no representation. I wanted to give just one more thing just to make sure that we get this across. But part of the problem that we've had in Dade County, and I'm sure someone else in this panel will address it, and I know Professor Tribe already mentioned that the Department of Justice is going to make sure and do whatever they can so that BURN and JAG funding goes to public defender offices. But the disparity is so huge in that kind of funding that in the most recent round of funding that we had last year, there was some money made available to indigent defense. I was eligible to apply for $150,000. My office, we got the grant from the federal government. The prosecutor was able to apply and got $4.3 million to handle cases in their office. So, I'm not saying that they don't need the $4.3 million, but whenever you give $4.3 million to one side, and then you're wondering, why is there such a disparity? Why is there a crisis in indigent defense? All you have to do is how you divvy up your money. So that's an important point to make. And we really have to focus on, and I know some people are going to be focusing on the solution, but we really cannot buy our way out of this problem. There have been so many things, and I know that it's difficult for the federal government to intervene in the state, but there are so many things that have been criminalized in the states. Driving with license suspension, for crying out loud, now in Florida, if an indigent person gets convicted, they enter a plea, they get fines and fees and costs, all sorts of things. On a misdemeanor, on average, $1,000. If that person does not pay that, they get a suspended driver's license in Florida. So we have created in Florida, between that and the fact that there are so many legal consequences to a plea of guilty, and even on a misdemeanor case, that we have created in Florida effectively a class ceiling for a large number of our citizens in Florida. And my last comment is, this is not just about the impact that the justice system is having on real people like Alan Krotzer. This is about the impact that it's having on the perception of justice. In our communities, I have to run for office, and I have to go through every community. And I can tell you, in Miami-Dade County, a lot of people think, oh, they're very conservative and there's lots going on. Across the board in every community, everyone understands that indigent defense has to be adequately funded, because that's how we remain free. So I hope we do that.